Yes, guys. Right. So just to be transparent, I've had quite a lot of feedback on these videos. Some people are finding them quite tricky to follow. Obviously, it's quite complex for beginners and stuff. So we're going to tailor this to be a little bit more educational. There's just want to kind of bring a lesson to this. Yeah. Every video, there's a lesson based on how the market's moved. And obviously, we didn't update them every day over the last few days, but that's just because the market was cascading to the downside. We needed to wait for structure. So these are going to be much more educational. There's going to be a takeaway from each one. And that's the most important thing for you guys that follow on the YouTube. And that's what I want to kind of make sure that everybody's learning on this platform, because deliverance will be where the action is, and this can be where the educating is. And another thing I want to update you on is I've been doing a lot of work on auction theory and market profile. These are two essentially tools that you can use to analyze the market better. They suit the way I look at the markets. And I've obviously gone on a very tremendous journey of growth over the last 2.5 years working with cryptocurrency. I see things a lot different. I'm way better than I used to be. And I lean more on I lean into things from a psychological point of view. I like to read the psychology of the market. That's how I like to view things. That's the way it works. And volume profile, market profile, and auction theory really help that on the smaller intraday charts. So there's going to be a lot more things I'm going to be able to teach you guys once I've done the due diligence on them fully. And I'm confident that you go through a process traditionally when you add things to your trading game, when you add a new confluence or when you add a new tool. Usually your hit rate might go down while there's that teething issue or that teething process. But then once you kind of get used to things, the hit rate comes higher again. I've seen it throughout my trading, throughout my journal and stuff. But anyway, let's look, right? So obviously, when we look at things from more of a macro level, there's one thing I want to show you guys, which is really important, yeah? So we have a situation, yeah, where this reading of the RSI on the weekly chart was almost a significant low. Okay, we haven't come this low yet, but the RSI hasn't traded this low in a very long time. And the last time it did, it was like almost market low. There was a huge consolidated process, and we did trade a little bit lower. And I'm going to be honest, this is the kind of environment that I'm picturing happening, right? These are eerily similar, these charts, where you've got the kind of, if these were separate charts, you would say they're almost very similar. So you've got a push to the upside. You have this like push to the upside. Then you have this like sell-off event. Then you have the sell-off event, right? Then you have that consolidation, right? Then you have that move higher, little bit of a pullback, and that final push to the upside. We had like two stabs. We had that huge, horrible, nasty sell-off. Then we've had this, right? Boom, boom, very similar. Boom, boom, very similar. And off the back of that move to the downside, right? And I would say that this structure break there, right? Because obviously that was that first major move. Then we had that structure. This structure break is similar to that one. So here, when we broke that structure, it was very similar to this. Psychologically, I mean, yeah. I'll be honest, I wasn't around back then. I've done a lot of due diligence, spoke to a lot of people. It feels very similar, okay? And, while we've set that ultimate low, it does feel as though that this low has kind of digested the market similar to this one. And it's also very similar how we had that kind of break below this 50-day SMA, break below the 50-day SMA. And the kind of trajectory of that SMA does feel very similar to this one. And this is just me observing charts visually, right? And this is not the be all and end all. Things don't have to happen like this, and things can go a little bit more ugly. But contextually, I like to use charts and kind of visually see how things look. This is just from a charting perspective. There's a lot more, there's so many more elements to it. You can look on chain, you can look from a macro point of view, and you can look at these catalysts. I see a lot of people trying to project price based on certain things, say, crypto legislation and regulation, rate cuts, and all these good things. Yes, guys, if those things happen, if Z, X, and Y happen, the market will go higher. It's like saying, if we have an influx of liquidity and they cut rates by this, and of course, right, we all know that, but that's what we're looking at. Charts just reflect those things, okay? And charts reflect the belief systems and the response to certain catalysts happening, which supports an asset's growth or suppresses an asset's growth. Yeah. And I just feel as though when we look at things from a chart perspective, this does have a a psychology. It has a character. Bitcoin does have a character. It's evolving, and things are going to be slightly different. And we didn't have this like really strong area of like consolidation to refer back to, like we did here. But I feel as though this low will get revisited. Okay. I feel as though this high will get revisited before any major move to either direction, if that makes sense. So I feel like we have like a range that we can look to trade and we can look to capitalize within. And there's another thing as well. When we've had the bounces on the daily time frame, when the RSI has only traded below the 30 9 times, okay, since since 2021, right? So we've had like or since this price point. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you can argue that's like 9. I wouldn't really say so. It's not the same. It's not really in the same way, but every time we have some sort of bounce, there's been a decent bounce. This bounce was of 19%. This bounce is around the same, and this bounce was just met with further selling. Okay, so yes, contextually slightly different, but it can still roll over. The RSI can illustrate either the market is oversold and its context relative to the time frame that it's trading in, or it can tell you a very, very clear picture that the market is in a very strong trend and there is an incentive to oversell the asset. Yeah, look at it like that. Don't always look at it like, okay, it's oversold, we're gonna bounce now. Bounces in this context when there's a clear selling program, and there's a lot to discuss. There's a lot to discuss with these instruments that are being built off the back of it, but built off the back of BTC and hedging. I'll go into this in another video. I'm not going to start talking about that now, but this is an incentive sell from big entities, and it goes without saying. It's very structured, it's very routine, and it's very, very strong. And there wasn't buyers to kind of stop this from happening anywhere. It just sold off until we met this price point, and this is just oversold. Sellers ran out for the meantime. And you have to understand that every time you break a level, every time you break a key level in markets, every time a key level is broken, it's not necessarily conviction broken, but it does spark some sort of reaction from all participants, and it starts to, and these charts are almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The fact that everybody thinks we're going to come to mid-50s either makes me think that we don't revisit them lows or we break further. And that's like, how can you come to them two sort of conclusions? That's just the way I see it. I don't feel like we're all just going to magically land on this level that we all want to say. And we all use these charts as reference. Everybody's looking at the same chart. And when you break these levels, every single person's looking at these charts. When you break these levels, you trade under certain indicators, and you set certain indicators off, like the RSI. Everybody is in rhythm with these with what we're seeing. We're all in a rhythm, okay? And this is a very clean structured break. That is a huge structure break, okay? If we kind of bounced and reclaimed, it might be different. And I think Bitcoin will look different, but Bitcoin isn't different. And I do feel like we roll over and take out these lows one more time. And I don't know how significant that the takeout of that low is. Maybe that could be a little bit of manipulation, and then we start to deviate and we start to trade back up. Okay, or we do break lower and we can come back down and to revisit these lows, and then maybe we set that low there. All right, so these are the two scenarios. Sorry if I hit the mic. These are the two scenarios that I'm seeing, and these are the two scenarios that I'm thinking. How do we play this in the short term though? So I do feel like this bounce may be slightly short-lived, and we do have a little bit of a daily range. If we want to go to this 12-hour price point, right? And I'll make this much more clean over the next couple of days, but I wanted to just talk contextually about where we are in the market. We have this level, right? And there's a huge liquidation cluster built up below this level. If we go to the 3-day, you can see 68,000, huge liquidation cluster, right? I can't imagine this market doesn't seek this out before any major push to the upside. So we have scenario one. Okay, and basically, and I'll go over this tomorrow in a little bit more detail on the shorter time frames. I don't want to make these videos too long. Basically, scenario one, we break down and we reclaim on intraday charts, and we have some kind of revisit on the lower time frames. All right, some sort of pullback, some sort of 61.8% Fibonacci, some sort of seek into the fair value gaps, or whatever we're going to have, we're going to look for some sort of nice strong entry here. Okay. However, this could also slip through, and we could also come down and start to trade lower. Either way, we're going to look to kind of map this out and capitalize. My bet is we see some kind of deviation and we come up to trade back into this region. Why? Because when we go to the weekly chart on the, let's go to the monthly actually, or 2 week, I think it is, on the liquidation heat map. You can see there's a huge cluster, right above into price. And it's not that we're going to magnetize ourselves all the way back up to 85,000, right? Even when you go to the weekly chart, you can see that there's a cluster above 76, I think it is, or yeah, around 76, 77. There's a lot of sell liquidation levels that need to be taken out of the market, I think, before we roll over further. And because of this overall move and the lack of volume here relative to this period and relative to this period, there is room for the price to move up into this level. How high it goes, I don't know. But I do think this will be just met with a rollover. And you have to look at this like this, guys. This thing can chop and slice up in the short term very nicely, like on the weekly chart. Like you can have huge pullbacks on the weekly chart before rolling over. This is just Bitcoin's attitude, because Bitcoin has that underlying philosophy of hope, desire, underlying buying pressure, the scarcity, all of these different things. People want to be in more than they want to be out of the market traditionally. And we've seen that in the way that the asset has traded over time. There is more success being long than there is being short, even to this day. Okay. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So I do feel as though, while I don't think we've set the full low, I don't think we trade lower off the back of that. I feel like that move might be congested and digested now. And then I feel like there's going to be a little bit more relief, and then we're going to look to roll over. But we'll map this on the intraday charts tomorrow. And just because we're looking to roll over and that's the intent, doesn't mean we won't be long either, or we won't trade the opposite side. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's what we're going to map out tomorrow. That's the start of the week. Hope you guys enjoyed a little bit of a breakdown on a macro point of view.